So, did you make contact with aliens? Were you taken to another planet, to a mothership? How did they communicate with... Can you tell me what they look like? Can you tell me how many of them there were? Were you given food?
But the teachers are alive. They're not books. They are the very living essences of nature itself.
What a strange person.
Unbelievably powerful supercomputer that's running our reality, and we don't have a clue as to how to operate it.
So when maybe you or somebody else creates an AGI system and you get to ask her one question, what would that question be?
What's outside the simulation?
Say in your mind, say to yourself, I am more than my physical body, because I am more than physical matter. I can perceive that which is greater than the physical world.
Welcome to Lighting the Void.
Oh, broadcasting from New York, upstate, near the Great Lakes, it's Lighting the Void, and we are live on KTLK Digital Broadcasting. It's Tuesday, November the 24th, 2020. Man, we are about to head into... Man, we're getting closer to 20... We're getting close to the next year. I'm tired of 2020, I know that. We're getting close to 2021. I bet this New Year's Eve, I was thinking about this earlier too, I bet this New Year's Eve party is probably going to be the biggest New Year's Eve party ever in history. I can't think of a year that I'm so ready to be over. So ready to be over. Anyways, enough complaining. Thanks for listening to us tonight on the broadcast. This is a live show. When we open up the phone lines, you can call in. Those call-ins are unscreened at 1-800-588-0335. That's the only way to do it. Tonight, we're going to be talking about the nature of time, the past, the present, and the future. And we're going to be joined by a very special guest who absolutely was one of my most favorite shows I've ever heard of in my life on Art Bell. I mean, Dr. Bruce Goldberg, everybody knows who he is, right? I mean, the guy did a past life regression on Jerry Springer. On Jerry Springer. If you want to check out his website while you are listening to the broadcast at any point in time tonight, that's drbrucegoldberg.com. Tons of cool stuff there. So we did the past life regression thing. And so tonight I want to talk about the nature of time and the future. It's not something that we get to talk about too much on this broadcast, although it is a very fascinating subject to me, the nature of time. Because there's so many theories. And I would have to think that someone like Dr. Goldberg knows a little bit about it because he's delved into the consciousness of so many people. But is there such thing as a future life regression? I got to tell you, I'm skeptical about all this stuff. I have to be. But I was skeptical about the past life regression. Before we get into the subject, I want to tell you guys, thank you so much for your support. Those that have supported this broadcast, I really appreciate it. If you want to support this broadcast, you can go to lightingthevoid.com. You can make a one-time donation or click on our Patreon and join the members there. That'll get you into the Voidwalker Patrons chat room, as well as the Voidwalker Elite page on Facebook. And then you get all the content when I get around to getting it done. But if you can't tell, I have to deal with all kinds of drama on the network, right? Because everybody just, oh my God. I don't even want to get into it. But it's like herding cats, honestly. But it's not totally like that. You got people like Barbara and Ryan that help out a lot. And then we got new hosts that are coming in who are actually really help out. I can tell you tomorrow night we're going to have a new host come on who you've heard on this show, and I've always wanted to have him do a show. I talked to Ryan about it, and Ryan agreed that Jared Murphy should be doing his own talk show, so he'll be doing the talk show. And then we made some pretty important contacts with certain producers that have been around for quite some time who are helping out too. So yeah, things are happening. But like I told you guys, this is a time of change, right? And I want you to really think about this too in your life right now. As we get into this whole talk about time and all this stuff, that what energy you put in, you should get back. And that's it. That's what networking is all about, right? You put in a certain amount of energy, you should get it back. In some form or fashion. It usually isn't like a 50-50 thing, but you kind of want it to be. That's what networking is. That's what friendship is. That's what all that stuff is about, right? So I'm going to do my part, you do your part, and we'll just have fun because the holidays are getting closer. And you should, if you're really, smart, you should give the gift of magic to your best person in the world or to yourself by getting an altar box. Go to lightingthevoid.com/altar box. This is a handmade tool that I designed in my head, that Brett from the Esoteric Scholar designed by hand, made for magicians, by magicians. For you to do any type of ritual or meditation that you need to do, we're going to be sending out pictures and instructional videos and all kinds of cool stuff with it too. I'm going to try to come up with some kind of cool promo for the holidays. And I don't know if I'm going to be doing a broadcast on Thanksgiving. Are you guys going to be around for Thanksgiving? I would really like to know that. Look at Mike J in the chat room with his bowl of popcorn. That's pretty awesome. He's ready to go. I like that. Cool. If you guys want to join that chat room, you go to thefringe.fm/chat room. That's some nice looking popcorn there, brother. You might put a little butter on that, though. Just a little bit. It looks butterless, Mike. But, yeah, so I want to get into the nature of time because we did this past life regression, and it was pretty cool, I got to tell you. And if any of you guys want to get into that, do it. Do it. Definitely. But can you look into your future? Can you control it? Is there really multi-dimensions? Is there really this multiverse that people talk about? And if you're studying quantum physics at all, obviously there's some kind of truth to this. We've had physicist, NASA physicist, Thomas Campbell on here. He's also talked to us about how the simulation theory is, how this is kind of like a video game and we're avatars and we choose. It's not quite like Call of Duty. I mean, you can't respawn, not the way you want to respawn if you die, but if you make one decision, something happens, you make another decision, something happens, et cetera, et cetera. But what about the theory of, are we in different places at once? Is this the only place our consciousness is at right here, right now? And you ever notice something really crazy too when you're asleep and you have a dream and you're dreaming about you're dreaming about like you're a character or something, or you're just in this whole different reality, and you totally, unless you become lucid, you totally forget about this reality. You could live on the earth for 40, it's amazing to me. You could live on the earth for 40 years, 50 years, whatever. You go into a dream, you slip into another reality, and that whole drive gets wiped. It's gone. It's not there. Whatever you're present in is the reality that you're in. It's the one you embrace. So what is time? How does this thing work? Did we invent it? Is it really an illusion? What's the past? What's the future? All of this stuff, Dr. Bruce Goldberg has talked about, looked into, studied. And if you guys want to hear a killer show, I think you should go back to one of his first broadcasts that he did with Art Bell. And it was so crazy. I actually heard it today. It's like a synchro. And what are synchronicities? What does that have to do with time? You see what I mean? Right? Like, so I'm coming back from town today. And I flip it to one of these Art Bell stations they have on the Paranormal Radio app. Because if you guys listen to any of these shows, I know you listen to the Paranormal Radio app, right? From TalkStream Live. And I'm flipping it to one of the Art Bell stations. And sure enough, it was Dr. Bruce Goldberg's show that I happened to be interviewing him tonight, and it was on today. Now, I don't know how many people were listening to that at once. And here's the thing. Is that really a coincidence? It is for me, but not for you. Or is it? It's a tricky thing when you get to studying consciousness and hypnotherapy and all of this stuff, because you really start getting perplexed about everything. Sometimes it seems so simple, and then other times it gets really perplexing. But if we can do a past life regression, which I did, and I'm telling you it's real, can we do future life, like progressions or time travel? And if you could really see your future, would you want to? That's the real question. Like, the whole idea of the future is exciting. It's exciting to me. I don't know what's going to happen. I'd like to think that I know what's going to happen. I think I can control some of the things that are going to happen. I can control what I do, but I don't know everything that's going to happen in the future. But if you could know it, would you want to? And I know some of you are going to go, yeah, of course I would, right? Because I would like invest in the market and make a bunch of money. All right, we'd all do that. So take the money out of the equation, take all that stuff, right? Would you want to take the mystery away from your life? Would you want to know it? And if you can do this stuff, if this is real, which I'm starting to think it's very real, then what actually is time travel? Is it when we is it like, do we have to get in a machine and go somewhere? Or can we just lay on our couch, focus on something and go? If that is true, which the more I look into this stuff, the more I think this is all about the mind. And I'm not talking about your brain, not the organ of your brain, not the hardware, but the mind, the software. I guess that's a good way to look at it. Are all the secrets to life in there? You know, the Hermeticists would say so. And I challenge anybody to do these, what are they called? Asana meditations that Aleister Crowley talked about, where you have to be perfectly still. So there's other meditations that get you to focus on one thing, just one thing, focus on your breath, focus on a picture, a symbol. But can you actually be totally still, clear your mind, and just allow things to come in on your own? It's very, very hard, very hard. In fact, I can tell you that these hypnotists that are very skilled at this stuff, the relaxation that they take you through has a series of progressions that take you through each state of consciousness that is very detailed, because the brain is going 90 to nothing all the time. Just so to get you to relax into that state of focus and total relaxation, yet without falling asleep, is a tricky thing. It's where the out-of-body experience comes from. It's where people delve into their past lives. It's where people go into the Akashic records. But this is a new thing for me, future life. How is this possible? I'm perplexed just thinking about it, because I don't understand, and I'm not going to pretend to understand, the nature of time. And a lot of the people that have come on the radio and on a lot of these shows that say they're time travelers, I mean, most of us, we're pretty skeptical about that. I'm very skeptical about anybody that comes on the radio and says they traveled from the future to here. It's very hard for me to grasp. I mean, we all seen Back to the Future. You can't get away with it. It don't work like that. You can't go back and start messing with the past. But what if it's not? What if time isn't that at all? That's what I'm saying. What if it's not like this physical place that you can get in a DeLorean and go back to? You know, you hear all these people talk about there is no time like the present, etc. Well, I don't even think we know what that is. Because the whole nature of time that we understand is based on the sun. It's based on the sun not even really rising. It's based on the revolutions of the earth, right? We see sunlight for so many hours of the day that we made up these things called hours, and we see nighttime and sunlight, and we die eventually, so we call this time. Our bodies grow, we see sunlight, we see nighttime, and our bodies die. And that's where we came up with time. I think it's an illusion. I really do. But it is kind of trippy. I was also thinking about this too today when I was watching Interstellar, that our bodies are designed perfectly to be born and grow and die, just like the plants and everything else on this earth. To be born, to grow, to die, and to be born again. This cycle that keeps perpetuating on this planet. If you study the esoteric and the occultism at all, that's what it's all about. I mean, mystery schools, everything. But maybe what they're trying to tell us is the secret to all of this stuff is that there is no time. I don't know. And if that's the case, I'm not pretending to know. So every time I say something, don't think I know, because I know just as much as you do. Don't lean on... You want to lean on our guest that's coming up, his words, more than you do mine, because he studied this stuff quite a bit. But then you hear people say, well, it's just bad timing or divine timing. Well, if there is nothing but the present, which that's a theory, then what is divine timing? What does that mean? And if we co-create with the divine or with the mind or whatever this is all the time, then aren't you part of that divine timing? Don't you get like a 50% say-so in what happens in your life? I wonder about that. Because I am totally guilty, 100%, of waiting for signs and things like that before I make any moves, before I do anything. But you know what? The people that have happy lives, or at least just seem happy, they're in the present. It's not like they're not thinking about tomorrow or 10 years from now or whatever, but they treat every moment like it's the present. There's nothing to wait for. There's nothing to do. There's only doing. Because they kind of understand the illusion of time. I have been on this earth, man, for 38 years. And I know to some of you, that's old. And to some of you, especially the older people, I know you always say, well, you're just a young buck. Well, whatever, right? But it feels like it went by so damn quick. So fast. So are we not just in one big present moment anyways? It's really tricky. If you go to sleep, I remember the first time my father told me this, I couldn't believe it. It's like I remember too, is like yesterday. You know, little kids, they don't want to take naps. They don't want to go to sleep. They're afraid. You know why they don't want to go to sleep? Because they don't want to miss out on anything cool. It's not because they hate sleep. Some kids actually like sleep, but because they don't want to miss out on, they're afraid they're going to miss out on something fun, something cool, something somebody else is going to get to see. If they go to sleep, they're going to miss out on it. And I remember my father telling me, look, just go to sleep. When I was a kid, right? He'd say, go to sleep. And before you know it, you're going to wake up and you're not even going to know all those hours pass by. Like, I don't want to do that. I don't want to go to sleep. I'm going to miss something. I don't want to go to bed. He's like, 8, 9 hours, whatever how long you think it is, you're going to wake up. And it's going to seem like only a moment passed. And if any of you have ever had surgery, right? You've had surgery, and what happens when you go under surgery? I'll tell you what happens with me. I get freaked out because I don't like being put under. And no matter what surgery it is, you start thinking, well, this could be it. This might be the last time I open my eyes, because anything can go wrong with the anesthesia, etc. It's not what you want to be thinking about. And usually a lot of people think about that stuff before they go under surgery, and then the anesthesiologist will come by and hit you with some like Valium or something to calm you down, and then you're good to go. And they'll have surgeries for hours. Some are like a couple hours. Some are a day long sometimes. But all you know is that they hit you with something. You're counting. For any of you that have, I know you've had surgery. More than likely, you've had surgery too. But you're counting. You don't remember going all the way out. I just remember, honestly, the last time I had surgery that my head felt really like hot and fuzzy. I don't even remember going out. And then the next thing you know, you wake up and you hear the machines beep, beep, right? Like, Mr. Roop, okay, calm down. Just relax. And you're thinking, what happened? How long was I out? How long did the surgery last? But it happened like that in an instant. So time could have everything to do with consciousness, not the sun, not the moon, not distance. Some people have that theory too, time and distance are the same thing, and they kind of are if you measure it the way we've come up with it. But what if it's just everything to do with consciousness? See, I don't know. I listened to Dr. Bruce Goldberg speak on this today, and he was, Art Bell shows were so fast hitting, and there were so many calls that came in. There was so much information that was just coming through, and people calling and telling him about his experiences, that I knew he was on to something. Now, he's also wrote quite a bit and talked quite a bit about the out-of-body experience. So we're going to try to put all of this together tonight, somehow. But the big question is like, if you could, if you knew you could look into the future, would you want to? Not in the way that, where you're going to make a bunch of money or whatever. But let's just say all of the plans that you have. Think about your plan. Where do you want to be in 5 years? Let's just think about this. Health, wealth, and relationships. That's what everybody cares about, right? Where do you want to be in 5 years when it comes to that stuff? Do you have a plan? Now, if you could look into the future based on everything that you're doing now, all of the decisions that you're making right now, and you could see what the outcome would be like, would you do it? Would you want to know? I'm going to bet that most of you would say no. Because most of you are afraid of rejection, right? It's the same thing like when you see a girl, if you're a guy, that you really want to go out with, or if you're a girl, I guess I'm assuming a dude that you really want to go out with. Of course, I don't know don't even want to get into that, who approaches who or whatever. But you don't really, you keep it at arm's length, don't you? You don't want to know because you're afraid the outcome. You're afraid of the outcome. And here's the really twisted part. You're also afraid that you might actually get what you want, which and then you really wouldn't know what to do because you would have more happiness and success than you've ever had in your life, right? So you don't really know how to handle that. And if you lost it, you'd probably be hurt. So sometimes I think we get addicted to the not knowing. I don't want to know. I just want to toy with it and play with it. I mean, I get that. But is that really the answer? Because I will tell you this for a fact. If I can look into my future based on all of the decisions that I've made right now, regardless of how many people I have to even see you in the chat that say, no, I wouldn't do it. I think I would. Does that make me a control freak? Does that make the people that want to know a control freak? I don't think so. It makes me want to learn based on my choices. So what is time? Can we see in our future? And if we can, would you want to? And if you could, if you saw where you were going, would you really change the decisions that you're making now? You see how perplexing it gets. But I still think this all has everything to do with consciousness, with our awareness. I don't know. This is like the redneck version of existential thought about time. Anyways, I want to thank Julian Vane for coming out last night. Really cool guy. We'll have him back on the broadcast. Tomorrow night, we're going to have Russell Brenniger. He's going to come back, and we're going to finish the show that got cut off that night during all those crazy astrological stuff that was happening. Let's blame it on that. Well, I had the worst technical night of my life, you know. I had the worst technical night of my life. So we're going to do a part 2 of that. And then Thursday, I don't know if I'm going to do a show Thanksgiving night. I kind of want to take a break, but I also think I might surprise you guys with something too. We'll see. And then Friday night, we'll do open lines. So we're going to go into our break. Please do not call the phone lines until we open the phone lines up. I miss so many of you guys' calls because you don't wait till we open the phone lines up. But if you do that, I promise you, I will answer your phone call. Matter of fact, just to be totally honest with you, the phone system, it's got 4 lines and it's set to auto answer. So as soon as you call in, if the phone lines are open, it automatically picks you up. It picks the phone line up if one's available. I don't even have to hit the button. I don't have a call screener or nothing like that. All I got is a red button. All right. So we're going to be speaking with Dr. Bruce Goldberg. We're going to be talking about future life regression or progression. We're going to talk about consciousness and all of the really cool stuff that he gets into. I mean, this guy is perfect for lighting the void. You guys know that. If you want to contact me via email, you can email me at contact@lightingthevoid. Oh, shoot. I was going to tell this person thank you real quick before we go into break. Yeah, I totally forgot. I got a really cool email from someone that started their own podcast because of this show. Let's see if I got time to do it here. And I thought it was really cool, actually, that someone was inspired. I mean, if we can inspire people to express themselves, man, that's great. That means we're doing something good. Maybe I can find it and we can, here it is. From Yogi Chander. Your journey has been fascinating to witness, and man, I really resonate with the vibe you're sending. I admire your vision and I also like your style. It's inspirational. I recently started a little channel to get my own journey going in the right direction, and I was blessed to have Nish join me for my first show, and more great guests are coming up. You're one of my heroes in the world of content creation, Joe. Would you consider guesting on my show? Absolutely, brother. Hit me up anytime. I recognize you have lots on your plate, and my channel has only like 13 subs right now. Well, you're starting better off than I did. So I get it if this isn't the right time. Listen, yes, I'll text you, man. Thanks for asking. I'll definitely come on your show. All right, we're going to go into a break. Be right back. Dr. Bruce Goldberg coming up. Stay with us.
Are UFOs real? Are aliens visiting Earth? Are governments around the world hiding the biggest secret in history? We're UFO Seekers, official partner of The Fringe FM, and we're on a hunt for the truth. Join us as we investigate locations like Area 51 by subscribing on YouTube at youtube.com/UFO Seekers.
Telepath is a weekly digital newsletter filled with the latest paranormal news, trending topics, and fresh articles from some of the most popular critical thinkers in the community today. Stay informed on your favorite paranormal podcasts and live streaming talk shows. Interact with the Telepath and upload your paranormal story or pics. It could be featured in an upcoming edition. Sign up right now for the free Telepath newsletter at paranormal.radio. That's
This is Dan and Dave from Surviving the System, and you're listening to The Fringe FM. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, the best revenge
You're listening
is
to
success.
KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
This is KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM.
Astral travel, magic, mysticism, and manifestation. What used to be heresy should be understood as our birthright. These are some of the topics we discuss on Lighting the Void, where we take you deep into the unknown. There are guest interviews, live on-screen calls, and me, Joe Root. Come join our family of explorers of consciousness, weeknights at 9 p.m. Pacific Time to 11, right here on KTLK Digital Broadcasting, The Fringe FM. Have you ever wanted to dream about being a character in your favorite video game or movie? Would you like to dream your fantasy with all 5 senses in detail and remember everything? It's time to bring the Dreamin' Mind back online. Introducing Dreamin' for Gamers from Ian Wilson.
Dreaming for Gamers will teach you how to program your dreams to dream what you want from any video game, movie, or source material that you choose. The courses help rehabilitate the dreaming mind out of atrophy so you can remember your dreams, taste, touch, smell, see, and hear, as well as be self-aware and take complete control over the dream state like Neo in The Matrix. You can't catch COVID in a dream, but you can wake up with a happy ending.
Type in thefringe.fm/dreamplay and sign up today to get dreaming now. That's thefringe.fm/dreamplay, or click the banner at thefringe.fm today and take the 7-day dream challenge for free while it lasts.
Hey, Fringe FM listeners. Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or no Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of the Fringe FM by calling 701-719-3971. No smartphone app or internet needed. Saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Call 701-719-3971. That's 701-719-3971. Listen to the Fringe FM on any phone, anytime, anywhere.
This is Jason Lindgren from Crow 777 Radio, and you can hear us 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every Saturday night here on the Fringe FM.
This is No Way Jose, a Northern California Piscean stuck in the Arizona desert. I'm a void walker, and I got the shoes to prove it. So what do I do when my soul yearns to delve deep into the realm of the unknown? I aim my satellite straight into the night sky and catch a smooth ride on the KTLK DB radio waves. I tune into Lighting the Void with Joe Root on the Fringe FM.
Joe, Lighting the Void is the best show on the planet. This is Barney, your friend from Facebook. Thank you and all the crew for all you do. Namaste, my friend.
This is Macon from the foothills of North Carolina, and I am a void walker. G'day, Voidwalkers. This is Lily from down under Australia. The world may be small, the enigma is greater. So let your curiosity take you for a journey with Joe Root.
Hey, this is Fee, coming in from Central Maryland, and I am a Voidwalker.
This is Kevin Doherty, a beginner Voidwalker. I'm from Vancouver, BC. I know a little about a lot, and as Leonard Skinner said, I'll guess the rest. I learned a lot from Mr. Root in the show, and I heard it from the beginning. I knew right then he was going to be a new Art Bell. Thanks for all your shows, and keep it up.
Hey, this is Derek from Mass, aka the Night Stalker, and I'm a Voidwalker.
This is Mark from Chicago, and I walk the void to ascertain what is consciousness.
My name is Jared Johnson, and I'm from Humboldt County, California. I do not know all of the answers to the questions about reality. I do not claim to know the ultimate truth about life. I seek that which has been made hidden as a part of a family of explorers of consciousness. I'm a Voidwalker. Thanks, Joe Root.
All right, Dr. Bruce Goldberg is here with us, and Dr. Bruce Goldberg is a clinical hypnotherapist who wrote the international bestseller Past Lives, Future Lives, as well as Dream Your Problems Away, Past Lives, Future Lives Revealed, and Spirit Guide Contact Through Hypnosis, which are all new page books, and he has appeared on a variety of major shows, including Oprah, Regis and Kelly, CBS News, CNN, Art Bell, and many others. This is the first time he's been on Lighting the Void. Dr. Bruce Goldberg, thank you so much for joining us. It's good to have you here.
Well, it's a pleasure, Joe, to speak with you and your audience. What I'd like to also mention is that my latest book, Exploring the Fifth Dimension, if your listeners are interested in ordering that from my website, they will get a free CD called Fifth Dimensional Travel, which will take them out of the body. That book deals with teleportation, out-of-body experiences, and parallel universes. So it's a fun read, and you can actually practice the techniques that I write about.
Oh, that's fantastic. And your website, too, I will say to everybody, it's full of cool stuff. It's not just you can get all kinds of stuff. There's downloads on here, too. It's like a goodie shop for me and this show and for our audience, because this is what we're all about.
Well, they can access my YouTube channel where I have actual videos of interviews of mine. For example, me taking Jerry Springer into a past life is on there. There's a UFO abductee that I work with. There's a time traveler contactee on there. A woman who lost over 130 pounds with hypnosis. You can see the before and after. A woman who was able to remove a psychic attack on the air, literally. So there's about 50 clips on there, and they're really fun. They're not that long. Like I say, there's also about 35 to 40 articles that I've written on there, so they can get a nice sneak preview, as well as all of my 21 books on there, and they can get CDs or MP3 files over 120 different titles to actually experience the technique themselves.
Fantastic. I bet you guys go check that out. Please go to the website, drbrucegoldberg.com. Now, I was just telling everybody before you came on here that I was listening to your old broadcast when you were on Art Bell, and you know how fast his show moved. It moved so fast, and you answered the questions. It was perfect. But it kind of, once the calls came in, we stopped talking about the nature of time. And I had just done a past life regression with Daniel Alexa, so I think this is perfect to speak to you, because to be able to look into the future would be awesome. For some reason, my mind cannot fathom it. How can we do this? Are we able to look into the future?
Well, in 1982, my first book, Past Lives, Future Lives, was the first book ever written on taking people into future lifetimes. So I literally created the field. There has never been a book written on future life progression. I'm sure somebody has done that in the past, but nobody ever documented it or wrote about it. So let me explain the way the time concept works to make it simple for you and your audience. Let's imagine that you are in a helicopter above a freeway. You know how they do the traffic reports in the morning, on your local radio stations, right? So let's say that you have a cell phone in your helicopter, and there's a car directly beneath you with a cell phone that you can communicate with, okay? So that's the present. And let's say there's a car 5 miles behind that car with a cell phone connecting to the helicopter if they want to, and that represents the past. And let's say there's 5 miles in front of that car on the same freeway, that represents its future. These cars cannot see the past, present, or future. Right? You can't see 5 miles ahead or behind if you're on the freeway, but you being in the helicopter above the freeway, now your vantage point, or your POV, as we say in Hollywood, is now you can see all the cars at the same time. When you go into a hypnotic level, which medically is an alpha brainwave level, very well documented, you actually are going through an out-of-body experience, or what I call that an IBE, term I coined many years ago, an in-the-body experience, meaning that you're using your fifth-dimensional senses, even though your perspective is still from the physical body, as a reference point. So you're able to perceive time. We call this the space-time continuum. This comes out of Einstein's special theory of relativity in 1905. This is very well documented. So that's where the time capsule comes in. We label past, present, and future. In reality, there is no time. It's all mushing together in the space-time continuum.
So when we tap into something like a premonition or maybe something that we see into the future, is it like, because you're using the cell phone analogy, is it like a frequency, so to speak?
Exactly. In fact, the frequency is a very good analogy when it comes to parallel universes. You see, right now, this is where it gets a little complicated, okay? This field is not simple. All right, so not only can you perceive the future, which really is happening now, even though you can change it, but when you change the future, you actually create a parallel universe. Think of Back to the Future, okay? Remember the movies? All right, so what happens is that what are these frequencies or these parallel universes? By the way, this is documented by, again, Einstein's theory of relativity, the string theory, the M1 theory. This is very documented mathematically. All right, so what happens is, let's say you're watching a TV show. I won't use radio because I don't want people to tune off your show here, okay, or internet. So let's say you're watching a show on NBC. And you're watching a sports game, what a documentary, whatever. And then your buddy calls you up and says, hey, man, you got to go to ABC. It's really cool. You're going to really love it. So you take your little remote and you switch it. That's a frequency. What happens to the original show on NBC? Are there not millions of people watching it? Not you, but everybody else is that was watching it originally. So it doesn't disappear into a black hole. A parallel universe is like a TV station or a channel. It's a frequency. We call this a frequency vibrational rate, technically. So that's what this is. Everything is a frequency. Remember, everything is math, everything is energy, and everything is frequencies.
Interesting. Okay, so the past itself is a frequency, too. It's still kind of there.
Right,
we call it the past.
You can't change the past. You can change the future. Let me give you a good example of changing the future. So we're going to go back to the year 1996. It's early June. A young lady from New York City, by the way, I'm originally from New York, okay, go Yankees, and she just graduated from school, and she comes out to L.A. She wants to work with me. She had seen my television movie, the CBS movie, The Search for Grace, about a documented case of reincarnation, right? So she was very excited about that, and she wanted to learn how to go out of the body, which I train many people to do. By the way, for the benefit of your listeners, I do sessions on computers, so if they want to contact me and work with me, they don't have to fly to Los Angeles, okay? They can do this by Skype, Zoom, or FaceTime, whatever. Okay, so now I'm working with her. While she's here in town for a week, she's a very good subject. In other words, she goes into trance, and then she sees an event that's going to happen a day in advance or 2 days in advance while she's in town, and sure enough, about 6 of these events actually occurred. So she's got a good track record. So I call her Tammy, not her real name. So now we fast forward about 3 weeks later. She goes home, everything is fine, and she's going to go to Europe the last half of the summer. She's going to go to Paris to meet with some of her friends, and they're going to hang out for about 6 weeks and then go to grad school, right? You know, very, very common scenario. So she calls me the end of June, and she goes, Doctor, this is Tammy. I got an emergency. And I said, Tammy, look, I retired from dentistry at a very young age to get out of that. What's going on? And because I have a dental degree. She said, well, I was using your CD, you know, and I wanted to see what my trip was going to look like. And I said, yeah, proceed. And she said, well, I see myself taking off in the jet from JFK. The plane goes up in the air, immediately crashes, and I die. And everybody dies. What do I do?
Whoa.
And I said, Tammy, I don't want to run your life. I believe in psychic empowerment. Why don't you just change your flight plans and call me at the end of the summer? She goes, okay, well, whatever. You know, she's a millennial, right? So the next thing I know, I don't hear from her. Now it's the end of August. She calls me up and she goes, "Doctor, this is Tammy." And she told me something I never want a patient to tell me. She said, "You saved my life." And I said, "No, I am not God. What happened?" She was going to go on TWA Flight 800. Now, if you remember, July 17th, 1996, the plane left JFK, went up in the air, immediately crashed. All 230 crew and passengers were killed. She would have been 231. So if it wasn't for our sessions, I don't take credit for this. This is her higher self working, and the God energy complex, as I call it. So if she hadn't come to see me, she would have died because she was going to go on TWA Flight 800. So she changed her future. Now, in a parallel universe, she died, but not in this one. She's still around, okay? And that was 24 years ago, okay? So that's how you can change the future. The future is plastic, but you can change the past. But let me give you something for your audience out there. Let's say you've got, I'm sure, a lot of listeners that maybe don't like their life right now. Maybe they've got medical problems. Maybe they've got a criminal record. Maybe they lost an arm. Maybe they have 5 divorces, financial problems. Whatever's going on, their life really sucks, okay? So what's the option? You either deal with it. Okay, I don't recommend suicide, by the way. That's a real no-no.
Right.
So what's the other option? How about this? Why not perceive your parallel universes and switch? Now, let me give you an example. I like to put myself in my research because I do a lot of exotic things with hypnosis, and I've done every one of them. So let me tell you what happened when it came to my CBS movie. In 1994, the movie was going through production, and there was a lot of problems, not with me, but with the producers and all kinds of politics, and some guy sued the network, and there were all kinds of garbage going on, and the network was not going to air the movie. The writer was a good friend of mine, and he was panicking because he was one of those L.A. types who, like, no matter how much money you make, he's always in debt. That was this guy, okay? Right? Got that? All right. So he said, "Bruce, I got to have this air, or else I'm going to, get kicked out of my apartment." And I said, "I will take care of it." He says, "What are you going to do? The network doesn't want to hear from you." And I said, "I don't want to speak to those energy vampires. I got my own techniques. I'm going to use one of my weird techniques. I call this the New You technique, where I go into the future, lay out the parallel universe, and then switch tracks." So that's exactly what I did. I could perceive that in those days, this was 24 years ago, that the movie, or 26 years ago, the movie was not going to air on that universe, on that parallel universe. Now, my life was great, but no movie. So there was a universe, actually several of them, but there was one where not only was the movie going to air, and I was going forward in time by 25 plus years, but I would also meet people I had no way of knowing, personal friends, girlfriends in my life, professional people, speaking engagements. In those days, I was doing interviews with Art Bell. I didn't know who George Norrie was, right? He was doing his Nighthawk in St. Louis. I didn't know who he was. Unless I work with a host, there's like 10,000 hosts in this country in radio. I don't know who they are unless I work with them. If I work with them, I'll never forget them. So I see this guy, and it's part of my frequency, and I said, "This guy looks like a Greek fisherman." I always tease George when I say that. And he laughs, and he does look like a Greek fisherman. So I said, "Who the hell is this guy?" But whatever it is, I'm doing a lot of work with him in the future after the year 2003, and sure enough, every one of those things came true. So I switched tracks. I am on a different universe than I was on in 1994. It's perfectly safe, folks. You can do it. And it's a whole lot better than suffering.
That is, yeah. I mean, that sounds like a whole lot better than suffering to me. But here's the thing that perplexes me, right? If the lady got on the plane, right, and she died in one dimension, and in this other dimension, she doesn't do it because she taps into that frequency and she doesn't get on the plane, what happens? Then what is the nature of her consciousness? That's the thing that trips me up.
That's a good question, so let me illustrate it. Right now, the frequency that I was on where my movie didn't air is still going on. I'm still there. I don't have any connection with that right now because I'm on this frequency. So basically, you have what I call sub-souls. You have a physical body. The DNA is the same, so you're going to look like you may be thinner or heavier depending on what you do, but you're going to have the same DNA. The haploid sample is going to be the same. So these lives are going on. You're just not aware of it. Right? Because they have to go on, because what you may think is an ideal frequency is very poor for somebody else, but the one you just left is somebody else's ideal frequency. So just like the channels on the TV set, they all go on. You don't lose the frequencies. You just don't have a connection with them. Now, you only have one higher self. This is what we call the superconscious mind, the perfect part of our soul that evaluates all our frequencies and that help us access the Akashic records and helps us grow spiritually, and eventually we ascend when we merge with it. But you have all these sub-souls. So your soul is a little different on each frequency because your experiences are different. The environment isn't perfectly the same. In some cases, you may be a heart surgeon on a parallel universe. Another one, you could be homeless, living under a freeway ramp. All right? So you see the environment, the occupation. Now, you won't lose your family. If people switch, they say, what about my wife and kids or my cousins, whatever? No, you're going to have the same family. You may have a different relationship with them. Some of the relationships may be better or worse, but you're not going to lose your family or the people in the environment that you have now. Your occupations may change, but the people involved will always be the same. So you don't have to give up your entire life, like entering into one of those FBI programs.
Yeah.
No, you have the same people there. It's just that your events in your life are different, and you can be happier or less or more miserable, whatever, depending on what you do. So you understand one higher self which supervises an infinite number of parallel universes. The way I do this is because you don't have to go through a zillion of these. There's only 5 major pathways. Each pathway or frequency has a bunch of subsets. All you have to do is the big one. So when I do this New You technique, all I care about is reviewing the 5 frequencies, so they can do that themselves. I train people to do that. By the way, on my homepage, if they really are interested in this technique, obviously the Exploring book covers it, but I also have another book called Custom Design Your Own Destiny, which goes into very great details about parallel universes and switching. And there are CD programs called the Custom Design Your Own Destiny CD program, which actually trains people to do the parallel universe switch. And by the way, when I do every month, the second Sunday of the month, I do a monthly webinar, which hypnosis is included. And there's a different topic every month. They're all advertised on my homepage. They can see that. But I train people to actually do this. In fact, if any of your listeners want to actually be a hypnotherapist, I did a training program last month, a very comprehensive one, a 6-hour program, which has been recorded, and they can actually order it and learn how to do this themselves. So I like to encourage people to use a more spiritual, metaphysical approach of hypnotherapy so that the population of this country, if not the world, because I have an international practice, can relate to it. I've written 21 books published in 21 languages, so I have an international practice.
Wow. Yeah, that is. So how many people do you work with on a constant basis, if you don't mind me asking? I mean, you got a lot of people you work with.
Understand, I don't see a zillion people because my sessions are like the initial session is 3 hours and the subsequent session is an hour and a half. So I'm not going to see millions or dozens of people every week. No, I don't. And my therapy is very short term, so I have a constant change of patients every week, because I deal with this in a very short-term, self-directed approach. I believe in, psychic empowerment is the term that I use. And just a statement that I make here, too, because this is not an ego thing, and I hate it when I deal with my colleagues who get on these trips. My therapy or my work is 1% of a patient's growth. 99% comes from their higher self. My purpose is to introduce the patient to their higher self and let the higher self do their thing. So I'm more of the social director on the karmic cruise ship here rather than the person healing people, okay? Yes, my patients go through tremendous benefits, but it's because of their higher self. My book, Soul Healing, one of my books, talks about a case of cancer and AIDS that were cured, literally cured, not by me, by the patient's higher self. So I believe in empowerment, psychic empowerment, not codependency. And I don't use drugs anyway. I never prescribe drugs. I actually get people off of drugs, so some of my medical colleagues do not like me because of that, because they think I'm undue competition to them. My attitude is I don't really care about my fellow docs. I care about the patients. And I don't like people being hooked on drugs,
Well, I mean, that's commendable. I think we all want to get off of that stuff, too, because it doesn't get down to the problem, which is the nature of this. Do you feel
but you don't understand the medical community. This is drugs drive the disease process internally, and if you are in the medical field, that is the standard of care. You can't even fight them. No matter what you do, the standard of care is drugs, and more drugs, and there's not a damn thing you can do about it.
Yeah,
what
we
I can
talked to
do is
plenty
offer
of
an
doctors.
alternative. I give them an alternative, which is no drugs, remove the cause, which is energy. It's always the energy level, and then go on with your life. And that's why I have a very big practice.
I imagine. Yeah, we talked to plenty of doctors on the show, and they all say exactly what you're saying, too. They all
but we're the minority of the field. We represent maybe 1% of the field.
Right.
That's the problem.
Right. So in your book, Exploring the Fifth Dimension, then based on what you're telling us now, then what is, when you speak of teleportation, what exactly are you talking about?
Okay, well, let's differentiate. We have to differentiate out-of-body experiences from OBE, as it's called when you read books on it, versus the teleportation. So people may be familiar with the term remote viewing, that gets a lot of attention, or just regular out-of-body experience. So let's say that I'm thinking that I wish right now that I was in Boa Boa or Paris or anywhere in the world rather than where I am right now. I could literally send my astral body, a bilocation is a term that you may be familiar with, to Paris or Boa Boa or any place else. That is not me. I don't physically go anywhere. That's my astral body. Or you can do remote viewing where you're getting a scan of another place, another location. Okay? And they've actually documented this, the Stanford Research Institute up in Northern California, Stanford area, San Francisco area, the Bay Area. They did that. This is a CIA project. It's got a nasty reputation. But anyway, so that's out-of-body experience. But the physical body doesn't go anywhere. Teleportation is the opposite. You send your physical body anywhere. You literally move physically without getting on a plane or a car. You simply use techniques, and I've done that. I've worked with many patients. It's a very difficult technique. It's got a low percentage of success, but when it works, it's brilliant. I'll give you a good example. Let me give you a personal example. I told you I throw myself in my research. So I used to live in Baltimore. That's where I got my medical training, and I lived there for a number of years. So it was the end of December, and it was cold. Baltimore, it doesn't snow that much, but it gets really cold. It was like 12 degrees outside, and I hate cold weather. That's why I live in Los Angeles, right? So I was saying to myself, this was like a Sunday. I said it was like playoff time, watching football playoffs, And I said, I really wish I was in Montego Bay, Jamaica, my favorite vacation spot at that time. But I wasn't, and I had a patient the following morning coming in from out of town, so I couldn't go anywhere. And I said, I hate this cold weather. So I figured, wait a minute, why don't I just teleport? So now I go, I change clothes, I put on my bathing suit with my little Zoris, my little transistor radio, my copper tone, and my towel, right? I lie on my couch. My dogs are looking at me like I'm crazy, right? They don't know what's going on, right? And I just play one of my teleportation tapes, okay? And the next thing I know, I'm on the beach in Montego Bay, and there's a beautiful young co-ed, like a little brunette college student, isolated on this area of the beach. And I walk up to her, and I'm only a few feet away. And she goes, "Where did you come from?" And I say, "Well, I travel quickly." And she goes, "Well, okay, why don't you put your towel down and, we'll talk, right?" So we're having a good afternoon, enjoying playing swimming, and a good old time. And she looks at me and she says, "How long are you going to be in town?" And I said, "Well, my flight leaves soon." So she goes, "Well, if you're going to be in town tomorrow, I come here the same time every day." So the next thing I know, I'm back on my couch, right?
Wow.
I'm just back there. So people say, "Wait a minute, doctor, this is an out-of-body experience. This isn't teleportation," except we have to look at the evidence. Number one, my bathing suit was wet. Number two, there was sand in my sneakers. And number three, I have a suntan. Trust me, Baltimore, Maryland, end of December, you don't get a suntan.
Well, that's fascinating.
And I've done every technique in the world with hypnosis. I cannot give myself a suntan. That's teleportation. I was actually there without a passport.
Did you have this documented with other people that you worked with that have done this?
Yeah. My book, well, in Exploring the Fifth Dimension, there's a teleportation chapter. In my book, Time Travel Smart Future, there are other cases of teleportation that are documented of men and women, mostly women. Most of my patients are women. They can read about it. It's all documented, not a problem. But let me give you an example of, would you like to hear the most documented case of teleportation that ever existed?
Yes.
This is cool. Now, remember, people say, there's a lot of cases in Britain and England and Argentina, and they say, that's just bullshit. No, there isn't. Actually, they're very documented. But here's the most documented one. We're going back to the 16th century. Now, in those days, we're talking about Manila, the Philippines, and we're talking about Mexico City. So in Mexico City, a Spanish soldier appears in the middle of nowhere. In other words, he comes out of nowhere. Now, you have to understand, in those days, Spain owned Mexico as a colony. But the Spanish uniform and the guns were different than the ones in Mexico City. So this Spanish soldier came into the plaza of Mexico City, right? And he was dressed as a Spanish soldier, not as a Mexican one. So they came up to him and said, "What's going on?" You know, and he says, "Oh, he's very nervous." He goes, "I tried to help the governor, but I couldn't stop it." And they said, "What are you talking about?" He says, "The governor, he was murdered. I was one of the guards." And they said, "Where?" He says, "Manila." He said, "That's 9,000 miles away. What, are you crazy?" So they arrested him, put him in jail. Of course, they brought in the priest to give him an exorcism. Remember, this is the 1500s, okay? And that didn't work. Then they just put him in jail. So now we have the Catholic Church documenting this. We have the historical records because he was in jail. And then this was at the end of October, 1593, by the way. And then 2 months later, you know, Spain would send the ships around their colonies. They owned, like, you know, Guam and Manila and the Pacific, and they go all the way around to Mexico. That's one of their colonies, one of their big ones. So now 2 months later, it's Christmas time. The ship comes into Mexico City, and they bring the news when they do that because they didn't have, like, you know, CNN, right? So they go into the report to the governor's office and the mayor's office, whatever, and they said, "Oh, guess what? The governor, Juan Don Gomez Perez das Moranas, was murdered." And they said, "Really? When?" "October 23rd." "Really? We got somebody who wants you to see." So they take this guy to the jail, and he goes, "Juan Perez, what's going on?" He identified the governor's guard who couldn't prevent the murder. That is documented by the Catholic Church and by the historical records. That is teleportation. You don't get to go from Manila, Philippines, 9,000 miles away to Mexico City in a few minutes unless you're teleporting.
Now, was this something that you noticed not just from yourself? Did you notice this in a patient or from something that you experienced first when you got into this?
You mean teleportation?
Right.
Well, I had read the cases of teleportation. Of course, I am a scholar in the field, you know. I mean, I've read probably 1,000 books in my life. So I knew about teleportation, but it wasn't until maybe, 25 years ago that I decided, I figured I couldn't do it. You know, I figured, well, that's nice, but most of these cases were all spontaneous cases. Nobody was hypnotizing somebody to teleport, okay? These were spontaneous cases. So I figured, well, what I got to lose, you know? I might waste my time, but this is fun because I did out-of-body experiences like crazy. I've been out of the body over 3,000 times. So for your listeners out there, it's not dangerous. I would be on the astral plane if it was by now. Okay, anyone could do this. So I experimented. At first, it failed. Nothing happened. And then about a month later, all of a sudden, I was, across the country, teleporting.
Wow.
And then to a different island, like Jamaica, okay? And I've worked with other people to do that. So, yes, teleportation is real. And, by the way, it goes back thousands of years in history. Many of these cases are religious cases. The Catholic Church documented them. But then there are other people. There are psychics who've done it. And they were average lay people. This is a phenomena. Like, have you ever heard of levitation, when people levitate, right?
Yes.
That is a beginning phase of teleportation, actually. So the East Indians, some of these gurus living in the Himalayas, they would levitate. And they're documented, actually. Well, the next step is teleportation. So you don't always do that. You can just teleport. Because what you're doing is, let me show you what teleportation really is. It's not Star Trek with the little fairy dust that you see when they teleport. That's Hollywood. Okay, forget that. What you're doing is you're walking into a tear in the fabric of space-time. And there are tears. There are lots of tears in the fabric of space-time. You're entering a wormhole. And when you do that, you immediately move from one place to another. So there's a scientific explanation for teleportation.
Well, would that be considered, would that be considered dangerous, though?
No, not dangerous at all. There's never been a case of teleportation where anybody's ever harmed. You're not going to teleport underwater and drown. You're not going to teleport in the middle of a mountain and suffocate. Forget that. There are the case of teleportation, and there are many. Most of them, I say, for some reason, England and Argentina. I don't know why, but those are the two most popular cases of teleportation in those countries. No, there's never been a case. People teleport, and they teleport, you know. This is not like spontaneous human combustion, okay, which is dangerous. This is teleportation. So teleportation is real, and this is part of the universe's design to have us to have metaphysical experiences. Out-of-body experiences are also well documented and perfectly safe. I've done over 3,000 of them. I mean, you know, it's perfectly safe. No one's ever been harmed by it. In fact, let me share something about nature. So every night you go to sleep. Now, this is what we know from medicine. Remember, I have a medical background, okay? You go through a 5-stage sleep cycle at night. You actually dream for 3 hours a night. You don't remember them. Almost nobody does. You may remember a fragment or two, but when you go into a very complicated 5-stage sleep cycle, stage 5 is the REM cycle. That stands for rapid eye movements. That's when you're dreaming. Okay, it's an alpha brainwave, by the way. We measure those in sleep laboratories. Now, what they won't tell you, what the medical people won't tell you because they're narrow-minded and hate metaphysics, is that in addition to dreaming, you're actually out of the body. You are in the fifth dimension when you're dreaming. And that's 3 hours a night. So the average person out there, everybody out there, including you, have logged in 3 hours of out-of-body experiences every night, which is about 1,100 hours a year. So take your age, times it by 1,100, and that's how many hours you've been out of the body. So going out of the body is not that complicated. There are techniques so that you would remember the experiences. That's what I train people to do. But everybody goes out of the body. In fact, if you didn't, you'd probably be dead because you need to recharge your soul's energy as well as your physical body. So it's a necessary part of life.
Yeah, this is extremely fascinating. We have got to go into the top of the hour. We kind of missed it there for our sponsor break, but we'll open the phone lines up to when we come back. It's 1-800-588-0335. If you guys got any questions about this or about Dr. Bruce Goldberg's new book, Exploring the Fifth Dimension, go to his website, drbrucegoldberg.com. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
This is Dave Cruz, host of Beyond the Strange Radio, and you're listening to KTLK, The Fringe FM.
Hi, I'm Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
My name is Jake. I'm from Billings, Montana, and I am a Void Walker.
Hey, Joe Root. Thanks for lighting the void. This is Janine in the bluegrass of Kentucky, and I am a Void Walker.
What's up, guys? This is Damien from San Marcos, Texas, and I'm a Void Walker. I listen to the show to keep myself aligned with the world.
Hi, this is Laura, aka Laura Lavender. I'm from Las Vegas, and I listen to Lighting the Void because it helps me understand some of the strangest experiences I've had. So thanks for all that you do and for always being there for us, Joe.
Hey, this is country music singer and Void Walker Jason Benoit, and when I need my fix on the world of magic and the capabilities of the human consciousness, I listen to Joe Roop right here on Lighting the Void Radio.
Tired of going out and having fun on Friday nights? Perfect. Because that's when our show, Shift Happens, airs live every Friday night at 7 p.m. Pacific. That's 9 p.m. Central, right here on the Fringe FM. Get there while you can status.
I'm getting older and noticing that my body just doesn't work as well as it used to. So I like to keep fit as possible by hitting the gym a few times a week. Recently, I started having a nagging bicep pain, and it got so bad I couldn't even lift the weights. When I was complaining about it to a friend, he told me about angioprim. He said chelation helps remove toxins, heavy metals, and cholesterol in veins and arteries that may cause blockages. You know, after just 1 week of taking angioprim, the pain was gone, and now I'm back in the gym full strength. Scientific research proves the active ingredient in angioprim has superior oral chelation action that helps promote cardiovascular health. So to learn more, go to angioprim.com. That's ANGIOPRIM.com, or talk to a trained consultant. Call Angioprim toll free at 945-888 945-882-7221. You'll feel better with more energy. That's 945-882-7221. Or go to the website, angioprim.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7 with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
This is Alex Exum of the Exum Experience in Live Talk, where we discuss current events, society, and culture. My shows are based in actuality, actual existence, contrasted with what was intended, expected, or believed. You can listen to me live Tuesdays at 7 p.m. Alex Exum. My name is Alex Exum, and I host Live Talk here on the Fringe FM. If you're sick of hearing about COVID-19, I invite you to listen to my show, 7 p.m. Pacific, Tuesday nights, for a COVID-free zone. We will not be talking about the C word. We discuss news, society, and culture, but not COVID-19. Go listen to the other fearmongers if you want to hear that nonsense.
Welcome back to Lighting the Void. I'm sure you guys are aware of what that is now. If you hear another show start to kick in, even for a second, that is the backup system kicking in if our stream drops. And it's set. I'll fix that. Actually, someone made me, brought that to my attention, and I'm very thankful to that. It's set at 3 seconds, so we'll get that fixed. But tonight, if you're just tuning in, you can call in now. The phone lines are open at 1-800-588-0335. If you've got a question for our guest tonight, Dr. Bruce Goldberg is here with us. And we're talking about time travel, teleportation, the out-of-body experience. Also, exploring the fifth dimension. That is the title of his new book, Parallel Universes, Teleportation, and the Out-of-Body Travel, which is something that it's the whole reason why I started the show to begin with, because I had one intense experience after reading Robert Monroe's books, and now I've found a whole new set of books that I want to get into. Again, thank you, Dr. Goldberg, for coming on. It's a real pleasure having you here.
Well, same here. Since we're talking about teleportation and out-of-body experiences, I want to read you a depiction. This is what one of my patients experienced when he teleported. This is his actual subjective personal experience of what a teleportation feels like. Okay? I'm quoting. It felt almost like I was caught in a giant web. Suddenly, the world exploded into countless billions of glowing threads. They stretched away in all directions, and they intersected everything, including me. The overall effect was very similar to looking at a hologram, except it was visceral as well as visual. You could see/feel the image. That's what a teleportation feels like. By the way, when you travel into the fifth dimension, teleportation, of course, is traveling into the fifth dimension, as are parallel universes. There's a term that I want to educate you and your audience on. It's called ultra-terrestrial. That's the term that I developed many years ago. Ultra, not extra, ultra. If you're an ultra-terrestrial when you're in the fifth dimension in any capacity. Let me give you another example. This is kind of a fun one that dealt with a couple of teenage girls from Texas in reference to teleportation. So these two girls were 9 years old at the time in Texas, and they were walking home from school in this like suburban area when suddenly an older teenager around 18 ran up to them and pushed them both aside. Just as they were about to be hit by a car being driven by a drunken teenager. Okay? So this girl, this 18-year-old girl, was wearing a light blue tennis outfit. She was 18, and she just tackled, literally, these two girls, 9-year-olds. Their name was Brenda and Amy, not their real name. and she literally saved the two girls' lives. Now, as Brenda and Amy turned around to thank this teenager, the girl just disappeared. Bingo, gone. Okay? No sparkles, just gone. Well, 10 years later, I was able to work with Amy, who told me the story. And what happened was that her and Brenda became, stayed friends for many years. One fine day, now she's about 18 years old. Now Amy is. Now this is about 9 years later, and she went to play tennis with Brenda. So she drove up to Brenda's house to pick her up to play tennis. When Brenda answered the door, she was dressed in a blue tennis outfit, the exact same outfit that was relevant 9 years prior. Brenda had fallen asleep on the couch and had a dream in which she had saved the lives of two young girls who were about to be hit by a car. So what happened here was that Brenda became a time traveler, teleported, went back in time, and saved her and her girlfriend's life at that time, deep in the heart of Texas.
That is intense. That's so intense. Like I can't even imagine that though. That to me, it's still, I know I understand how you're explaining it. I really do. But if this is what's going on, then why are we not all doing this? I mean, why are we randomly
doing this? All right. Now, you have to understand there are universal laws involved here, okay? So this isn't like, remember there was wasn't there a movie called Jumpers? Did you ever see that? It was about teleportation. That was just Hollywood bullshit. I'm a Hollywood consultant because of my movie. I consult with feature films. They don't listen to us, okay? That's just Hollywood's way of trying to play games. If people just teleported around, the universe would be rather difficult. Number one, you got to enter a tear in the fabric of space-time, okay? So there are a lot of them around, but they're not like every 2 feet. So that's difficult on a statistical level. But secondly, there would be just chaos on this planet if everybody was teleporting around. Think about it, right? You wouldn't be able to build anything. You wouldn't be able to do anything. You'd just be jerking around and having a good old time, but that's not the way the universe is constructed. So teleportation is a rare experience, but a real experience. But let me educate you and your audience about the different dimensions. This is something that they do need to know. If they want to do out-of-body experiences, you need to know the game plan here. So we live on what we call the physical or earth plane. Every dimension, we call a dimension, plane means the same thing. Every dimension has a sound and a description. So the sound of the earth plane, or the physical plane that we're on, is thunder, which means you don't want to do an out-of-body experience in a thunderstorm. You're not going to be harmed, but it's like swimming upstream because the thunderstorm sound will keep you on the earth plane. So it's not going to be a very successful experience. The next dimension is called the astral plane. This is a very emotional dimension. It's divided into an upper and lower astral plane. You don't want to go to the lower one. That's what people think of as either hell or purgatory. It's nasty. The upper one is beautiful. Okay, the roar of the sea is the sound of the astral plane. And in the astral plane, in the upper one anyway, you have a museum where you can see technology of the future. That's where I developed my famous superconscious mind tap technique and going into the future, which I call progression therapy. I think Bill Gates and Tesla and Einstein hung around the upper astral plane too, because again, it's got all the technology of the future. Beyond the astral plane is the causal plane, which is the actual technical seat of the Akashic records, which is the records of every past, present, future, and parallel life. The sound of the causal plane is tinkling of bells, like a New Age bookstore, okay? The next dimension beyond that is the mental plane, which is characterized by the sound of running water. And this is where the masters would hang out, such as a Moses, a Buddha, Jesus, Krishna, whatever, they would hang out there. The sound Om is characteristic of the mental plane. And you can always tell you're on the mental plane because if you look down at the freeways or the highways there's an iridescent blue color because they make their roads from the dirt like we do, and the dirt is very this iridescent blue color. All the entities or the people who live there look like little angels in white smocks, and the buildings are of geometric designs, abstract kind of designs. Beyond the mental plane is the etheric plane. The sound of buzzing bees is characteristic of this dimension. You see stars 24 hours a day. It's the largest of all the dimension, and this dimension has what we call etheric plane surgeons. So when I work with a patient that had cancer cancer and AIDS and they were healed, it was by the etheric plane surgeons. They can heal anything. They heal your etheric body, and in rare instances, you can transfer the healing from the etheric body to the physical body, and therefore you can cure any disease, literally. Beyond the etheric, by the way, the etheric plane, mental, causal, astral, and physical, represent the karmic cycle. You want to get out of this karmic cycle. Beyond that, the sixth dimension is called the soul plane. This is where you go after you cross into spirit or clinically die after any of these lower 5 dimensions, and that's where you choose your next life. The single note of the flute, by the way, is characteristic of that dimension. Or you eventually ascend when you perfect your soul and learn all your karmic lessons. Beyond the soul plane is what we call the higher planes, or this is like heaven or nirvana, which is characterized by indescribable orchestra-like music. And there's no perpetrator, no victims. It's basically nirvana or heaven. There's no body, by the way, so you are pure energy, and you're perfect. And eventually you go up to the 13th plane, which is the God or nameless plane, which is what you really want to absorb or become part of. And that's the dimensional paradigm. That's my 13-plane dimension paradigm here.
Wow, that's really cool. Now, I got some questions about this, too. Earlier, you mentioned the girl that saved someone's life. Now, maybe there's a loophole here, but I thought earlier that you mentioned, Dr. Goldberg, that we can't change the past, right? Like, we can't change our past, or can we interfere with someone else's past?
Well, okay, but here's the difference. It wasn't like these 2 girls were already killed, and then she went back in time to try to save their life. They never were hit by the car. So she didn't change the past. She just created the past.
Oh, okay. That makes, that makes more sense. I got you.
We're not talking about reanimation of a dead body here. That's not what we're talking about, okay? That's the difference.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. So then, all right. So then when we look at things like the Tree of Life, the Kabbalah, all of this stuff, this is what I've been putting together in my mind. You know, these guys, they talk about the Tree of Life and all these different planes on the astral planes, from all the way up to the very high down to manifestation. It seems like they were on to something. They just gave it names and
well,
things like that.
So let me ask you a question. I'm not trying to stump you here.
Sure.
It's a very important question. What do you think the Kabbalah represents? What do you think the bottom line of those 10 little circles you see, whatever? What do you think the big picture is, what the Kabbalah actually is trying to teach you?
Well, I think it's trying to teach you the nature of consciousness and all its different levels.
Well, yes, but to go beyond that, it's an ascension vehicle.
Right.
The Kabbalah represents ascension, period. Perfection of the soul. So that's what the Tree of Life. This isn't the Tree of Knowledge where you're like, Adam and Eve and the apple, which, of course, is a symbolic representation. Hint, folks, it didn't really happen, okay? All right. But the Tree of Life is the representing of eternal life, and that's ascension. That's what it represents. Now, the Kabbalah is very complicated. Nobody ever agrees on what the Kabbalah represents.
Right.
You try to read an interpretation of it. If you read 50 authors, you're going to get 50 interpretations because they go into their little paradigms. They go into their pseudo-intellectual nirvana here. But the bottom line is it's ascension. Nobody's going to disagree with that. So that's what the Kabbalah represents. Now, let me. When you're becoming an ultra-terrestrial, people always ask me, what kind of entities may you run into? And that's important to know, okay? Well, we're assuming now you're on the upper astral plane. You don't want to go on the lower astral plane. And by the way, when you reference the Robert Monroe book, the Monroe Institute, if you read his books, he wrote 3 of them, the late Robert Monroe, he was describing the lower astral plane. That was a pretty nasty description. He was not on the upper. So that's why he's not on my Christmas card list, okay? You want to go to the upper astral plane, okay? All right, so when you're on the upper astral plane, you're floating around, what are you going to see? You're going to meet departed souls, people who recently died, crossed into spirit. They'll be traveling through the 5th dimension, eventually to reincarnate. You can meet people who are having near-death experiences, where they clinically die, but they come back. But in that time when they're clinically dead, they're in the 5th dimension. You can meet spirit guides. These are beings who are once human, but are now more spiritually evolved, and they're hanging around the 5th dimension to help us, like a Buddha complex kind of thing. You can meet angels. That's rare, very difficult to meet angels, but they're there. They can be there anytime they want. You can meet your higher self, which is the perfect part of your soul, most often represented as a white light, but can represent itself any way it wants, a religious figure, a departed relative, a colored light, anything, okay? You can meet fellow fifth-dimensional voyagers, or astral voyagers, as I call them, people like yourself just experimenting with out-of-body experiences. You can meet the good extraterrestrials, not the creepy ones like the Greys and Reptilians. I mean Pleiadians, Arcturians, the good guys, okay? They hang around the fifth dimension. And then the real fun ones, and this is where my work really bifurcates from my past, time travelers from our future. I call them chrononauts. I've written a couple of books on that. I'm the only one, to my knowledge, and I'm not trying to brag. If anybody wants to challenge me, go ahead. I don't know anybody on this planet except for moi that actually has cases of real time travelers. I'm not talking about theory. I'm talking about real people from our future, between 1,000 and 3,000 years in the future. Okay?
How is that
Those
possible?
are time travelers.
That, I mean, I just don't fathom it sometimes. I mean, you mean when we're out of body or when we're doing the conscious traveling, we can meet these people that are in the future. That's what you mean, right?
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
well, but to understand, the time travelers come back in time. Where do you think I'll get our technology from? Let me give you an example. You know, I'm sure you can understand that when I deal with newscasters, not metaphysical people like yourself, but when I deal with these hard-ass newscasters that they don't believe in anything, you know, right? They probably cross-examine their wife when they get out of work, you know, that kind of thing. Right?
Yeah, right.
Right? You know what I mean? These are not happy campers, so trust me, and they like to drink a lot, okay? All right. So they say, oh, come on, doctor, time travelers, what are you smoking, right? And this and that. Okay. So where do you think we get our technology from? Let's go back in time a little bit to 200 years ago, the beginning of the Republic, okay? What kind of technology was around in the 1700s? Or let's say 1800, 1820, 200 years ago. Did you have cell phones? Did you have satellite dishes? No. Did you have TV and radio? No. Okay. Was the human mind stupid 200 years ago? No. Our mind hasn't changed in 300,000 years since Homo sapiens sapien, which is our species, has been on this planet. Were the raw materials depleted? No. There were more raw materials then than there are now, since we use them up every second, okay? So why didn't we have television in those days? Why didn't we have satellite dishes? Why didn't we have nuclear bombs? You know why? Because we didn't have the same connection with time travelers from our future that give us our technology. It's not the government and your taxes. It's not even the corporations. They manifest it, but where do you think they get their ideas from? Time travelers interact with us in our dream levels. Remember, I told you dream for 3 hours a night, and that's where they interact with us, and they give us our ideas. Now, this is not just my research. There was a very interesting study done. They found that 80% of scientific discoveries and 80% of artistic developments, mainly great art, you know this, the aha movements, they occur in the dream levels. Isn't that interesting? What's the odds against that? That's when time travelers communicate with us in our dreams. All right? So therefore, the time travelers have been communicating with us more in the last 100 years, and that's why we have the technology. It's not because we're smarter. It's because we've been given the answers to the test. That's why. Through our dream levels, of course.
Yeah, and it seemed to increase around the same time frame, too, where things just... It really took
Geometrically, by the way, this is not an arithmetic progression. This is a geometric one. You go from 1900 to World War II, 1945.
Right. Yeah.
Okay? What do you have? You have old cars, no satellites. The computers were the size of a warehouse. You know, if you study World War II, and then all of a sudden after World War II, the Roswell incident, 1947, right? Arnold labeling flying saucers, and all of a sudden, the Area 51, all of a sudden we have an exchange of information. We allow the ETs to abduct people, and they give us technology. But they're the nasty ones. The time travelers are ours in the future, and they're good. They help us our spiritual growth because they're us in the future. And they have no incentive to be creepy with us, whereas the Greys do. They're creepy, they're selfish, they're idiotic, they have no soul. I mean, they're like a machine, Not a lot of good stories about Greys.
No, a lot of people call them
by the way,
artificial intelligent AIs, things like that.
They also say they're robots, and I understand that. We don't know because nobody's had them on a dissecting table, unless you believe that phony film that was around. Okay, that was not real. But my point is that the Greys and the reptilians are related. And by the way, you don't hear a lot of reptilian stories because they're cannibalistic. They tend to eat their mistakes. So, you don't see a lot of them around. The Greys, of course, have been around forever, but the reptilians are rare. Anyway, my point here is that our technology was given to us by the ETs. Yes, they've been the deal. This is the. Have you ever heard of the Greater Treaty? Do you know what that is?
Negative.
Okay, Greater Treaty. This is the story. This is like the Majestic 12. You know, this goes back to the Eisenhower era. Supposedly around 1954, Dwight David Eisenhower was president, right? And he was golfing in Palm Springs, California. Well, you know, okay, I got it right? Let him golf, okay? Well, all of a sudden, an Army little Jeep pulls up to the golf course, and the guy comes out and he says, Mr. President, you are required to go to Edwards Air Force Base, okay?
Okay.
He says, okay, I'm president, let's do it, okay? So
I remember this. Yeah.
What's going on there?
I don't know. That's weird. I hear that too.
Okay. Somebody tried to rat-a-tat a thing. Okay, maybe it's
that
lower
was
Ashland.
weird. I've never heard anything like that. That was weird.
Okay. Well, maybe certain governments are screening this call. I don't know. If they are, go to hell, guys. You know, you're wasting my time.
Yeah.
Okay. So Eisenhower's taken to Edwards Air Force Base, and when he drives up there with this guy, you know, the sergeant, whatever's driving him up there, he sees a big UFO right in front of the administration building. Okay.
All right.
All right. Now, he goes into this conference room. Right away, Eisenhower realized something is up here, right? This is not part of the typical military-industrial complex that he warned us against, by the way, if you remember his farewell speech. Anyway, he goes into the administration room, and there's a conference table, and there's a bunch of generals sitting around, and there's a couple of grays. And they gave him the deal. The deal was a treaty. We're going to let the grays abduct people, American citizens, and they're going to give us technology like you wouldn't believe. Here's the problem with that. First of all, abducting American citizens is not going to win you a lot of friends and influence people. But that treaty is illegal. He could have been impeached for that because all treaties have to be ratified by the Senate. The Senate never got to create a treaty. But the treaty was enacted. And that's why you have abductions. Lots of abductions. The recent estimate is over 6 million Americans have been abducted.
I could explain a lot of that missing 411 too. Where a lot of those cases are the people just disappearing by the thousands. Right. You know.
Well, sometimes the CIA is involved too. They like to blank people. You know what blanks are? This is say how stupid the government is. So, I work with a former CIA agent. I don't work with active duty people. Right? They're always former. And he was telling me about one of his buddies who was he would do blanks. I said, "What's a blank? Okay, what's it like? A phony bullet that you put in a gun? You know?" He says, "No. A blank is when we take a person that we don't like, and we make them disappear. You can kill the person, but they go into the records. They remove all the utility records. They go into the yearbooks, you know, and they just make sure they never existed." I said, but you can't do that. If you're dealing with some guy, maybe he graduated from high school and one of his classmates lives in Omaha, Nebraska. What are you going to do, get every single classmate and steal all their yearbooks? He says, well, we run into problems sometimes that way. That's the CIA.
Yeah, that makes
God bless
sense.
the CIA. Oh, yeah, the spooks. Go back to Skull and Bones, you creeps, okay? All right, I'm not a fan of the CIA, okay? I know you have to have intelligence service because everybody else has them, but believe me, you don't want to have lunch with them, okay?
Well, there is a pretty good question in the chat room about that, too, and I'm sure you've talked to enough people. You probably have some insight
bring
into
it on.
this.
I love questions. Go ahead.
The Night Stalker's asking, is the government doing this? Is there a paramilitary group of astronauts, so to speak? People...
well, okay, we call them Chrononauts, and the answer is yes. First of all, the Remote Viewing Institute, the SRI, Stanford Research Institute, was set up in, I don't know the exact date, but I know is in the early 70s in Stanford. There was a book written called The Mind Race that was written about 1972 or 3 or so by Russell Targ. It's a really good book if you want to read about the remote viewing. And the reason why they did the remote viewing, this was a CIA project. They wanted to have our military people be able to do remote viewing, go into Moscow and steal the secrets. Got it? You see?
Gotcha.
Rather than sending people over there and risking their lives, let's do it by remote. They can't arrest you if you're an astral body, right? So that was the purpose of SRI. But does the government have a time travel aspect? Well, there is the Montauk Project, and there are other secret projects. We don't really know because they don't publish them. But yes, the government is involved. More importantly, the government gets information from time travelers and ETs. Okay? So there is an interaction. And again, there's the Creator Treaty with the ETs. Now, the time travelers are different because they're not creeps. They're trying to help us. They give us technology. They try to help us spiritually. They have a lot of medical techniques they can use to help us. So they're cool. The Greys are the ones that are a problem. But the Greys came first. So the government got in touch with the Greys first. Therefore, they sold their soul to the devil, so to speak, by making the Greater Treaty Deal because they were greedy for technology. And don't forget, there were crashes like the Roswell crash where they re-engineered the craft, so now we do have a lot of technology like stealth jets and all kinds of fun stuff that came from the crashed vehicles, Roswell and other crashes.
Now, I'm curious about this, too, because there is a timeline. I've seen the timeline to this where all of this goes together, where Aleister Crowley, so to speak, some people think he was a British intelligence agent, doesn't matter, gets together with his wife Rose, goes to Egypt, and invokes Aiwass, or this being that says a new aeon is coming. And then the next thing you know, you have the whole Roswell incident. And a lot of people say that all of that is interrelated, but it is on the timeline.
Well, look, I know you're involved in magic. I saw your homepage, so
Sure.
I don't want you to be offended by this, but I'm a scientist, and I'm very objective, and I really don't care if I alienate people with the truth, okay? Aleister Crowley was a degenerate human being. This guy literally sold his soul to the devil, okay? He was a sexual pervert. I mean, this guy had a lot of problems, okay? And he tried to rip off that organization with the 3 dots in England. I'm familiar with his history, okay? And he died a broken, burnt-out old guy. But what he did was something that was very nasty. He was practicing black magic.
Right.
See, I don't have a problem with white magic. I got a real problem with black magic. And Crowley was a black magician. Now, you know that, right?
Yeah. And I've tried to talk to everybody, that even magicians that come on the show, that they read his books, and they're like, well, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. And look, I don't either, okay? I read all kinds of books.
But you know what he did?
Stuff.
He wrote this book that was supposedly nonfiction. This is the part of Crowley that I hate more than anything else. He wrote this book that was supposedly nonfiction. At the very end, he's being interviewed by the media, which in those days was newspapers. He goes, "Oh, guys, guess what? I just made this up." Really?
Yeah, right.
You made this up? Really? Got that? Okay.
It's the book of the law.
The Hall of Fame.
The book of the law.
Anyway,
that always,
my point is that my point is I don't want to encourage people to use black magic.
I don't either.
They can use rituals. They can use healing rituals. They can make it rain if they're a Native American. I don't have a problem with that. But I do have a problem when you're using magic to hurt people. And that's what he was doing. And that's what people who use the black arts do. They do it either very selfish, trying to get money, sex, love, fame, fortune, whatever, or they try to hurt people by vengeance and revenge.
Right.
And that's where I have a problem with. Okay.
And this is what I've talked about this too, like invoking, because if it is consciousness and we're all interrelated, and you're invoking beings and saying, well, now there's nothing higher than the will. Actually, love is under the will, and it's like when they say, well, it's the same thing, and I'm like, well, I don't know about that. I was listening to your broadcast with Art Bell.
But I don't think that Aleister Crowley caused the Roswell crash.
Yeah, I don't either. I don't either.
Okay.
And so I just wanted to make that clear, because a lot of people put those two together.
But he did die about the same time. Didn't he die around 1947 or 6 or 7 around there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And see, I don't either. And I was listening to your broadcast with Art Bell, and you were talking about, look, you can't do rituals and stuff like that to get to God, because a lot of people want to get to God.
No, what you will do is you will wind up on the lower astral plane, and you will be dealing with lower level demonics and very nasty entities. The only way you get to the God energy complex through ascension is by removing the karmic debts that you have, by practice. See, the universe only has 2 emotions: fear, which causes all the problems, and unconditional love. So you want to move towards unconditional love. And when I work with most of my patients are female, and they'll say to me, I'll say to them, what is your goal? And they'll say, I would like to meet my soulmate. And I said, okay, what's your definition of a soulmate? And they'll say, well, I want to meet a man, I'm speaking as them now, who gives me unconditional love. And I said, well, that's impossible. If you want unconditional love, get a dog. I recommend miniature schnautzers, which I happen to have. But you're not going to get that from a human being. Everybody's got an agenda. Everybody's got, not that people are nasty or evil. It's just that, unconditional, that's a little bit of a problem, okay?
I think you can get close, but everybody's got a line.
You can get close. I agree. You can get close. But you're not going to get perfect unconditional love from a human being. It's just not going to happen. But but my point is, you want to work towards unconditional love. You want to live spiritual principles. In my books, I give a whole bunch of details about the kinds of things you could do with your lifestyle to be more spiritual. That's what you want to do. You don't want to be a greedy idiot. You don't want to use people. You don't want to be selfish. You don't want to be destructive. You don't want to burn buildings, okay? You don't want to be a member of Antifa, little things like that, It's not going to get you into heaven, okay?
Right. So then there is this thing that has to do with what you brought up, karma. Like, this is something that I think we need to identify it. And I've been saying this on the broadcast for a while because I see it in myself too. If we keep repeating something in our lives, a problem that keeps happening over and over and over again, shouldn't that be a clue that that's something that we need to break through spiritually?
Well, what's Einstein's definition of insanity? You do the same thing over and over again, expect different results.
Right.
That was a classic. No, that was true. Einstein, that was his definition of insanity. It's been around for 80 years or so. Okay, so my point is that you want to be spiritual, cool. You don't have to be an idealistic idiot, but you want to be able to just do things, mean what you say, don't lie. That's a biggie. I live in Los Angeles where everybody lies, okay?
Yeah.
You've been out here, you know what I'm talking about, okay?
Yeah.
No, you don't want to do that. You don't want to be selfish. You don't want to rip people off. You want to be honest. You may not make as much money as somebody else. You may not have the hottest wife in the world, if that's what you're into. Just do your thing, okay? Remember, eventually you're going to die. Your soul's going to leave the body. Your body's going to fertilize the lawn. So all the boob jobs and all the peck implants you get, you're not going to be able to take it with you, okay? So I got a problem with that too. That's just insecurity. Do you know why plastic surgery is so popular? And I live in the plastic surgery capital of the world in Los Angeles, right? Beverly Hills,
Yeah.
The reason being is because my theory, and I wrote a book called Look Younger, Live Longer, where I train people how to slow down and even reverse some aspects of the aging process, is that I think, and these are women mostly, they think that if they look younger, they're going to live longer. No, that's not the way the system works, okay? Really. That has nothing to do with it. You may look good in the coffin, but you're not going to live to be 130 just because you got Botox, okay? Okay, or breast implants or whatever, okay? So my point is that you want to live a nice spiritual life, and there's nothing wrong with it. My books are all full of spiritual principles. You can do your thing, going out of body experience is very spiritual. The purpose of it is spiritual growth, by the way. Using remember, hypnosis is a natural state of mind. It's a natural daydream. Not only do you have 3 hours a night of REM cycle, out-of-body experience hypnosis, which is really hypnosis, but during the waking day, you spend 4 hours doing what you would call a daydream. When your concentration is focused, you're relaxed, and you don't realize how much time has gone by. That's hypnosis. That's an alpha brainwave. Watching TV on the computer, reading a good book, whatever you do to relax and enjoy yourself. Driving on the freeway, we call that freeway hypnosis. You're in la-la land, right? You don't remember every exit you pass on the freeway. If I was sitting next to you with an electroencephalograph and measured your brain waves, it would measure alpha about 25% of the time. So my techniques are all natural. I just specify them for certain therapeutic purposes. But basically, I'm not doing anything artificial. And there are no drugs involved. This is all natural. And there are people, by the way, that use drugs with hypnosis. It's called narco-hypnosis, which means they're a lousy hypnotist, and it's very dangerous because you're using general anesthesia, which you can kill people with. But you can't hurt anyone with hypnosis. It's all natural. It's beautiful. And by the way, this goes back to shamanism. If you really want to know the history of this, shamanism is any kind of energy healing. Hypnosis, meditation, acupuncture, Reiki healing, Ayurvedic healing from East India. All this are based on shamanism. And shamanism goes back to Siberia, 50,000 BC. It's got a long history. And if something's been around for 50,000 years, you know what that tells me? It works. Because if it didn't, somebody would have been killed, and that would have been it, right?
That's right.
If you were trying to scam someone with some technique in some primitive village, how long do you think you would have lasted? They would have killed you, right?
Yeah. Well,
it would have been like the Aztecs ripping out your heart. Whatever they would do, they would just kill you. So this has been around for 50,000 years. You name me a philosophy, a religion, any principle that's 50,000 years old, and the answer is one: shamanism.
Right.
Okay.
Right. That's right. So if we astral travel and we have an out-of-body experience every night, basically, and this is also how we tap into teleporting and jumping timelines, etc., how are we not unconsciously unconsciously doing this all the time? I mean, how do we come back to the same place every night?
Well, you basically have to, because here's an example. When I do out-of-body experiences, now, of course, I've done this myself, so I know how to train my patients. So when my patients go out of the body, they can't stay out very long. It's like a rubber band or a boomerang. They're going to go back to their regular body at a period of time, or if they hear a loud noise or something happens in the environment, they snap back immediately into the body. You ever notice, let me give you a good example of an out-of-body experience. Let's say you wake up in the morning. Now, I don't know what time you wake up in the morning. I'm an early riser. I get up about 6 o'clock every morning. But it doesn't matter what time you get up. We're assuming now you don't have a lot of drugs. I'm not into the drugs, okay? I don't even drink, okay? So forget drugs for a moment. So let's say you wake up in the morning. Can you not remember this? When you wake up in the morning for a few seconds, you don't know where you are. Is it 8 a.m. or is it 8 p.m.? What planet am I on? Don't you get disoriented for a few seconds? You know why? Because your astral body is now slammed back into the physical body from the astral plane to the earth plane, and that's very disorienting for a few seconds. And then you stabilize, and then you go on with your day.
That actually makes a lot of sense. And I think some people come back a little faster than others, I think, for the most part. Yeah.
Some people are disoriented. We're assuming no drugs now. Some people are disoriented longer than others. Like I had one of my late girlfriends, ex-girlfriend years ago. She was a real millennial, she was like a hippie, very cute girl. And when she would wake up next to me, she would take her about 2 minutes to get oriented. And she wasn't on any kind of drugs. She would just say, oh man, this is really cool. But she was a very naturally psychically gifted woman. She was an artist, and so she was not your typical American, okay? But no, some people do take longer. But most people, it's just a matter of a few seconds. I'm sure any of you listeners out there, if anybody disagrees, call in, text, email, whatever you want to do. Dematerialize, whatever you want to do. But I guarantee you, everybody can relate to it.
Yeah, I do. I'm one of those people that, I'm not stupid, but I'm not the fastest brain in the world either. When I wake up in the morning, I have to it takes me just a few minutes to get myself together, and that's
why
it.
That's why God created coffee.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. That's right. Right. And, but that's another thing too. You were talking about this earlier. This is a problem. And this is something I think the alchemists understood this, but I don't think we understand this yet. Just the effect that drugs have on our energy and our consciousness and our capabilities. The
alchemists weren't worried about holistic behavior. They were worried about the philosopher's stone and eternity and creating gold from lead. That was their obsession. Okay, so that's not a good example.
Well, I mean, there's spagyric alchemy too, though. Like Paracelsus, who really didn't care about metals at all and used plants and nature and everything too. So alchemy's got a lot of different levels.
By the way, Paracelsus was a very interesting dude.
Yeah.
This guy, you never hear about him, but this guy was a really brilliant dude. He was like a physician in those days, and who was the one I'm trying to think of? One of these metaphysical guys from the 17th century. He thought he was the reincarnation of Paracelsus too, but he was a very interesting guy. I wrote about him in one of my books. It's something you have to Google him because nobody talks about him. He's an interesting dude, though. But yes, the purpose of this, so there's parts of alchemy. Look, we get chemistry from alchemy. When I was I was a chemistry minor in college, and when I was in my my inorganic chemistry course, so I mentioned to the professor, I said, "Who's your hero in science?" And one of his heroes I knew, because I knew his background, was Isaac Newton. And I said, did you realize, Professor, that Isaac Newton in his day, in the late 1600s, early 1700s, had the world's largest collection of alchemy books? That's a fact, by the way. And he knew that, too. He said, well, I don't want to talk about that. I said, well, I do, because alchemy, if it wasn't for alchemy, you wouldn't have a job.
Yeah,
alchemy is the basis of chemistry.
So when people talk about the Akashic Records, is that what everybody says it is? Is that what Edgar Casey says it is? Or is it something else entirely, a place full of
the
records.
Akashic Records represents a fifth-dimensional computer chip, literally, that's stored on the causal plane. And what it represents is a record of every past, present, future, and parallel life. Everything you've ever done, every little dirty little secret is recorded in the universe's Akasha. And the universe has its own Akasha. You can go back to the Big Bang Theory and beyond. But everybody's got an Akashic record. So you can't change the past, so you can't clear your Akashic record. It's not like the statute of limitations here, but it is a record. And people, when they access that, that's when you can perceive past lives or future lives or parallel lives. I call that paragression when you deal with parallel lives. You're actually reading the Akashic record, and that's what a psychic will do. A talented psychic, not some phony scam artist in a muumuu with a tent, in Venice Beach. I'm talking about a real psychic, okay? They actually can read the Akashic record, and that's what I train patients to do.
Well, that's so cool. So basically what you're doing is you're empowering people to travel consciously on their own. You're empowering them to
and access their higher self. That's
access
the key.
their higher self.
That's the bottom line.
And
so basically, when I do my monthly webinars, which again your listeners are welcome to, they go to my homepage. That's dr and then brucegoldberg.com. All my webinars are on there, second Sunday of the month, 12 to 2 Pacific Standard Time on Sunday. They can access my books, CDs, and there's MP3 files if they want those there too, DVDs, lectures, everything is on there. The whole purpose of every aspect of my work has one theme: connect with the higher self. That is the perfect part of your soul. That's how you eventually ascend. But before you ascend, because that's a long process, you want to go through spiritual growth. You can overcome habits, phobias, raise your self-image, attain abundance. I call that karmic capitalism, and I wrote a book by that title, by the way. So you can do anything you want. The higher self comes from the God energy complex. That's creative. There are no limits. The only limits are what your belief system is. So you can access your higher self and be all you can be, as they used to say in the Army,
right.
and without joining the Army, okay? So that's the purpose of all this, and that's what really any metaphysician should be preaching. If they're not, they're being selfish, and they're trying to say, I cured you, when they didn't. Only God and the representation of the higher self, which comes from the God energy complex, can cure you of anything. So that's what you need to know. Problem is, it's not well distributed by my colleagues, by my illustrious colleagues. I wish they did. There are some that do, most don't, because of ego. And you want to lose the ego. So basically, accessing the higher self is the key.
That's so awesome. I mean, it's cool like that. Do you think that because we only got a few minutes left here, and you wrote a ton of books on the subject, so I really want to know, I mean this, I know you've been asked this before, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Are we getting closer to being able to do this? Is it the same? Are we getting better as humans? Are we evolving spiritually?
Well, we have a consciousness shift. This is what the age of Aquarius represents that we're entering into. Yes, there is a consciousness shift. Now, I know it's hard to relate to it because of all the idiots that are on this planet. When you have, Black Lives Matter and Antifa burning up buildings, and you have people trying to steal a presidential election, and you have all kinds of creepy people doing stupid things. I understand that, but there's still a consciousness shift, because the world is a lot better off. Nostradamus was one of my favorite dudes from the old days, from the 1600s, 5th, 16th century. And he came up with one of his quatrains that supposedly a comet was supposed to hit the Earth in July of 1999, which would have wiped out most of the Earthlings that are on this planet. The reason why it didn't happen wasn't because he was wrong, but because there was a consciousness shift, so we avoided that, just like you avoid a meteor hitting the Earth. So there is a consciousness shift going on. It's a small movement. It's increasing every year. So yes, the future, in my work with progressions, in the next 100 years, we're going to have one hell of a better planet. So you got to hang in there this century, but beyond this century, in the 22nd and beyond, it's going to get a lot nicer, a lot quicker too.
I hope so, because I think after this year, people are going to be like, Jesus, let this end, right? Let this end. So let's circle back around. The final question here, I guess, that we can go into tonight about this is, the fact of the matter is we can see into our future, right? We can tap into that. If we work
we
with
can
you,
not only see into our future, we can change our future. We can switch parallel universes if there are certain things that you cannot change. As I mentioned, if you have an incurable disorder, if you have a criminal record or X number of divorces or financial debts or whatever, things that you cannot change from the past, and it will affect your current life now, you can switch tracks. That's the ultimate form of psychic empowerment, is to switch tracks into a parallel universe. Anyone can do that. I've done that. If I can do it, anyone can do it. I'm not superhuman. I don't wear a cape. Okay?
fantastic. Yeah, fantastic. So if you guys go to the website, drbrucegoldberg.com, you can grab his new book. I'm at the menu up here. There's a ton of downloads you can get to. The monthly webinars sound very interesting. I'm sure that's very
and
informative.
the YouTube channel has about 50 different clips that you can actually see me working with real patients on TV, as well as Jerry Springer's past life regression. That's on there too.
Fantastic. Once again, thank you for coming on and talking to us about all of this.
My pleasure. It's a pleasure, Joe. It's a pleasure working with this, and I suspect your audience is going to be well attuned to this, and I hope to meet them.
I hope you do too. And if for anybody, thank you again, Dr. Bruce Goldberg. It's good to have you. And if any of you guys go get the stuff, please let me know. Tell me, because I'd want to see you in there, because I'm going to be doing it too. Look, we got to get out of here. The Secret Teachings with Ryan Gable's coming up next on the Fringe FM. Please come join us tomorrow night. We're going to do part 2 with Russell Brenniger. And I want to thank my producer, Patrick Newland, also Stevie and Chrononauts for doing the music, all of our members and patrons. Thank you guys for coming out tonight. We'll see you guys tomorrow night. Good night.